Guys, Tony Robbins, office trampoline.
I got my bounder.
All right, you guys, we are live on Facebook. I am recording this as well so we can share it later for all those who may miss out. And thanks so much. I'm Jenny Wolek with the Wolek Group in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am so excited to share my friends with you who are super smart, and they will have so much goodness to share with us today. We're tackling shift tactic 1. And thanks for joining us for this agent success secrets that we're going to roll out to everyone, because not everyone lived through the last market shift. And that's kind of the key word that we keep hearing. And Patrick, you mentioned everything this past week that kept popping up. So first, I'll let you guys introduce yourself and just share where you're from and what your production looks like. And then we can go into your history when it comes to real estate and the shifting markets that we've experienced. So Josh, why don't you go first? You're in my top left. So.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry, that's where you are.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this. I appreciate that. So Josh Anderson in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been in the business since April of 2006. I don't know if that was a great time to get in the market, but it is what it is. Did 104 million in volume in 2019. And
do you hear that, Patrick?
Yeah, I hit it. Got some work to do.
Yeah, step it up, bud.
Doesn't make it any easier when you get there. So just keep in mind.
All right, keep going. Sorry.
Anything else, Josh?
Oh, no, that's it for me.
Okay.
That's it? That's all you got?
I mean, what else do you?
No, that's great. That's
long walks on the beach, that kind of stuff.
I mean, I guess why don't we add in
walks to the bank. Yes,
let's add in, while we're still on you, Josh, just kind of what your life and your business looks like right now. You're still in production, you have a team, all that stuff.
Yes. So totally still in production on the listing side of the business for the most part. We've got 14 people on the team total. That's about half and half with administrative versus agents. So mostly buyer agents. I do the listing side. And then we have a director of operations, director of marketing, listing coordinator, transaction coordinators, and a couple of virtual assistants.
Awesome. Hello, Patrick.
Hello. Gosh, how am I going to keep up with Josh on here?
You have different skills.
Yeah, I'm very special. So, Patrick Woods, I am in the Sacramento, California area, and I got into real estate in 2002. And so I've been with Keller since 2006. My real estate team right now, we're still a fairly new real estate team. So I don't have the numbers to share like Josh. Prior to that, ran market centers as a team leader, general manager, and now I'm an OP of a market center in Elk Grove, California, right by Sacramento. So.
Well, that's awesome. So I'll just share my quick little background that I was thinking about this morning, was that I've been in real estate since 2001, and I moved back home to my hometown in 2004, and I did not discover or join Keller Williams until 2007. So my first ever event that I attended, because I had a small child back then, was in 2009. And in 2009 at Mega Camp, the number one topic was this book. We went through every tactic before it was released to the public in the form that we know today in 2010. So my mind was blown, needless to say, and I loved it because I was never in a company that we talked about or knew or planned or prepared the way that Gary Keller was talking with us from the stage. So I have a small team here in Tulsa. We got to help 145 families last year, and I am the lead of my team. I do a little bit of production, and mostly I have great agents that help out, an awesome admin team. We're about 5 or 6 or 7 people today,
depending on the day.
Yeah. So we'll see. We're looking to grow. So that's always fun. But anyway, let's just dive into this. And you guys can, whoever wants to answer first. I really just was thinking, like, what was your life like back in 2000? Like we said, 7, 8, 9, and then in the shift? Like, how did you start noticing there was a change in your business, or were you so new in the business you were still figuring it out?
Yeah, I think for me, I was still, if you look at highlight years like 2010, for me, I was still only about 3 to 3.5 years in the business. So actually during the first part of the shift, outside of people saying the market really sucked or it was changing, I kind of had my head down and I didn't really have any money. So I was doing the basics. And I mean, I came into the business with an Excel sheet as my CRM or database. And I literally had $5,000 and refused to ask my parents for any money. And so I made it work. My first deal was 3.5 months into the business. And I think I did 23 deals my first year in 2000, or first 12 months. And then the next year I did that was like 3.5 million. And then I did like 7.5 or 8 million my second year and 11 or 12 my third year. But I really didn't, I think when you're in the transaction so much, I wasn't really a business owner at that point. I think when you're in the transaction, you're so busy finding your next deal and servicing your current clients and trying to do it at the highest level. And even at that point, I think I might've had a part-time assistant in like 2008, 9, 10. So I don't know that I really noticed it until I look back and go, oh, wow, that was really bad. Like when I was so new in the business, I didn't realize how bad the mortgage stuff was. Like they were literally doing the ninja loans where it was like no income, no job, no assets. You're breathing. Here, you can have 100% financing on a $700,000 property. And I just never, I don't know. I think I probably looked up more in 2011 or 12 when I was starting to have a couple of buyer's agents or admin and like realized like, oh, I made it through a really crappy time and my business actually grew every year.
So if I was just to summarize, basically you didn't know any better and you didn't have any money. So you just followed the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book of prospecting and
and I also had not been in the business long enough to be like jaded or anything. Like my mindset around business was like, I'm going to go crush the competition and do as much as I can. I didn't have I had not been in the business like some of these people that have been in the business for 20 plus years and they've just got a certain attitude or mindset around the business, which I think, and this is part of what tactic one is, like the whole mindset around all of this is the most important thing. You can have the greatest database in the world and have a crappy mindset around it and you're never going to be successful. Not at the level that you could be.
Yeah.
I think also when you got into the business, kind of that ignorance is bliss, right?
Yes.
You don't know what you don't know. And this is just the way the business is. Where the people
I still feel that way. Is that good or bad?
But you're king of your own market,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What did you experience, Patrick?
So do you want me? Oh God. So just a little background. I owned a .com in 1999. So 1999, 2000, 2001. And so we all know how that played out with the economics and the .com bubble burst and everything. And then I decided I don't like tech. So I got into something easy like real estate.
All right. Sure.
And so I get into real estate and I'm in Sacramento. I moved up here April of 2005 and I was just out door knocking, whatever it took, because I was in a place where I had a ninja loan, right? We just moved up here. I was commission only. My wife was a school teacher, didn't have a job yet. And so I had to get out and hustle. And so I just remember going out and getting listings and man, my phone was ringing like crazy. Went away for 4th of July weekend in 2005, came back and the office, the phones, everything was quiet. So didn't quite know what was going on. Just the phone stopped ringing. And I just remember the manager of the office coming in and saying, don't worry, it's going to be a soft landing.
Really well.
And I'm like, well, they said that during the .com whole thing, and that didn't work out so well. So I'm not really thinking this one's going to work out so well either. So it just, I mean, just like you, Josh, I wasn't in residential real estate for all that long. By the time I went, okay, we just got to get out there and do the work. And you learn a lot of lessons during those down markets too. So
you also get market share that you never relinquish. Like right now there's 13 or 14,000 agents in Nashville, Tennessee or Middle Tennessee. And that's grown by 50 to 75% in the last 5 or 6 years. And, the minute the market changes, anybody can sell real estate in a really great market.
Yep.
Because everybody has friends. Somebody wants to support you and help you, and that's great. But when you stick through it and do all the basics and do it at a really high level consistently, I think you don't lose that market share in a down market. I think you actually keep what you have and grab more.
Especially if you're the first one to adapt to that shift, right?
Yeah.
Well, I started my real estate career in Norman, Oklahoma after I graduated with my master's. Boomer.
Was that what year? 2000.
All right. And actually, yeah, it was 2001. So yes, I was living in Norman and I got my real estate license totally by default, just because I was wooed by the opportunity. I was waiting tables anyway. So this was just, selling a bigger product. And I didn't have to learn any skills of what we know today that's important: lead generation and follow-up and actually running your business like a business. I didn't have to learn any of that because it was a college town and you put a sign in the yard and it sold in a minute, maybe a minute. It could have.
You also didn't start, like, I'm probably spoiled a little bit. I started with Keller Williams, and so like everything that we are afforded and given is, I think about all my friends that are in other businesses outside of real estate. They don't have access to all this stuff. They don't get to sit with somebody like Gary regularly. And so all the boutique brokerage that you probably started at probably didn't tell you a whole lot from a learning and education and support.
100% true. And there was a new Keller Williams in town, and they were just taking the market by storm. And I was in a small town where all the brokerages are friends. Everybody gets along and everybody's friends. And then this Keller Williams comes to town, and they had a bad reputation early on. I mean, think about what Keller Williams was doing back then. They were taking lots and lots of agents. It was numbers. And so, I remember one agent that had been in our company and made her way to Keller Williams, and she was crushing it. And so what do we say when we see other people that are successful? We all just start dogging her. Like, I can't believe she's calling people and asking them to help them sell a house.
Can you believe that?
I mean, can you believe she's calling people? But anyway, long story short, I made my way back to Tulsa. And of course, Tulsa was a very different market. It's a bigger city, and not everybody cheered for the Sooners, which was weird. I don't know. I was kind of adjusting and figuring things out. And honestly, then I have a small child, and I really didn't learn how to be a business owner until I got to Keller Williams in 2007. And so that was when this started happening. And I had benefited from, I had some California investors who were with Keller Williams. They come to town. They were referred to me by a Norman agent, and they were taking the equity in their properties in California, because you guys had the crazy appreciation. They were taking 20 to 30 grand of their personal equity and coming to town and buying brand new construction in our area. So I had my best year ever in 2006 with this other brokerage, and not one person noticed. Like, I didn't realize I needed my ego stroked, but I think we all do. Like, if we have our best year ever and nobody's patting you on the back. So that made me realize that I probably wasn't at the right place. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was failing all through it. So then the market started shifting here, and it was such perfect timing that I happened to already be here to have this shift book and materials. So that's my shift story. And I noticed it most specifically when, like Josh was saying, is, back then I was younger, and who were most of my clients? First-time home buyers. And they were getting these 106% mortgages. And I remember understanding enough to know that if next month they lost their job, they are upside down and in a very bad situation. And then we started seeing it happen. And as a business professional, as a real estate agent, when you get the call from that past client that you loved, you helped, and they're in such a bad situation and you can't help them, it sucks.
Yeah.
So that's
everything had to be a perfect storm for so many people. Like, our market really didn't turn that much into foreclosures and short sales, like 8 to 10%. So it was a small piece compared to somewhere like Miami or parts of California. And so but still, like those households that had two people that were working and bringing in income, they both had to keep their jobs through that economic shift. And, it was interest only or whatever it was. I mean, everything had to work out perfectly. And for so many people, it didn't. So that's why we're talking about the shift.
Yeah, absolutely. So today was really on these 5 pages, and Josh, you shared a text that really
I highlighted the entire thing in 4 different colors of highlighters. Like the last, I don't know, probably 5, 7, 8 years. Whenever I first read this for the first time, and you can tell, like my highlighter yellow color is very faded, and I've gone back and highlighted over. I've got it in pink and orange and different pen colors. But literally, I highlighted almost the entire thing. I mean, if you look at some of these pages, it's like the whole thing, and then notes out by the side. It's crazy. There's just so much good, like basic information in here. And this whole thing's on mindset. And I think that's the biggest thing I just think that's the biggest piece.
Yeah. So let's just go into that. So this whole tactic 1 is get real, get right with your mindset and action. So first there's a mental shift that you must acknowledge what the heck is happening and going on. And then you got to get into action. So what would you say, we know that we have pretty good mindsets between us. What would you say were some of the action steps that you took early on or that you're still using today?
I'll tell you one of the, and this took me probably a couple years to like really get it refined and dig in. But and I say this all the time, like nobody in elementary school, yes, you go to school and you have some type of regimen or you have some type of schedule, but the big piece, like nobody really tells you like, hey, you should time block or you should do all these things, because I think school kind of teaches people how to be employees and not business owners or entrepreneurs. And it teaches you how to sit at a desk all day. And whether you have a computer at school in front of you or not, it kind of is teaching you to do that rather than like, hey, you need to do the important things first or take those things and don't let any distractions happen. It's the same as I tell people about P&L statements and all those things. Those don't come naturally for me. I'm good at looking at them now, but damn, that takes a long time. I mean, there's a gazillion other things I could do than look at my P&L statement. Like, I don't love doing it, but I know to run a business, I have to have certain numbers and I have to look at that and understand it just like the English language.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is you got to get out of the emotion of a shift and get into the action.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty easy to get caught up in what's not going well. I remember having listings that were sitting, because there was a point in time when you could take a listing and if you overprice it, you just wait a week and then it would sell with multiple offers.
Right.
And then the market shifts, and it was the things that were tough in that where the market would shift. And I remember listing the mother of a bridesmaid in our wedding, her home, and the neighbors would call me and just yell at me, telling me I'm taking advantage of a little old lady and causing the prices to go down in the market. Mm. Right? I don't know if you remember those moments where people are saying, you price that where? You're causing the market to go down. Well,
yeah.
We can't cause the market to go down. And I got her out of her house with an A-class buyer, and it worked out really well for her. So I think when you have shifts, and we have little market shifts along the way, and everybody kind of goes, who moved my cheese? And it's the people that can adapt and get into action faster that are going to go steal the market share. And so you just have to realize that you're in complete control of your business and get into the things like Josh was saying, get really focused on your 20%. What are those activities that are going to yield the most results?
And I guess where I go with that, because that's not really part of tactic 1, as far as like time blocking and schedule and like talking to your database and adding value, but it's the mindset of like getting to the point of being able to do it. And so I think mindset's everything. I've got kind of 5 things in my world that and they're all basics. It's the database and it's the lead gen and it's the having just all those things, time blocking, having a schedule that you can stick to. But the biggest thing that we don't really talk about probably is the attitude and mindset around this whole piece of it, of just setting yourself up for success. And like, you can look at it however you want. And one of the things I highlighted, one of the 500 words on here on each page was just kind of like, just just kind of talking about, you can't control the market, but you can control your outlook and your response to the market. And I think that's with everything, not real estate. It's like everything in life, you can look at it half full or half empty. And I think it's easy to automatically go in that mode of like, well, it's half empty or victim mode. And I think people are kind of conditioned to do that.
That's funny because I was just about to share the same thing. I wrote down that there's 3 types of people.
I know.
Those that are pessimists, those that are optimists, and you right off the bat, you probably know where you tend to fall when it comes to one or the other. And then what's most important is that you prepare for the worst and you strive for the best. So it's really a combination of being at least self-aware enough to know where you are to be able to keep this going and continue in your business. I love the part where he talks about be a low tider. Always be prepared for low tide.
Yeah, one of the things I wrote down right there, and I remember Gary saying this a long time, like early on, and I was like, oh God, that's so good. It's just one of those little one-liners that just sticks with you, and it's good markets conceal and bad markets reveal. And when he said that, I was like, holy shit, that right there. I mean, it was just one of those things that was like, anybody can look really great in a really great market. And, the good businesses in a bad market still do the same thing and gain traction. And so it's figuring out, what does that look like? And yeah.
I like what Dave Ramsey says, when the tide goes out, you can tell who's skinny dipping.
Yep.
I like that.
I just look at it, right? The market shifts, and all of a sudden, I remember our office, people stopped coming into work. It just got real quiet in the market center.
Yeah.
And you could say, okay, this is not good. Or you could say, all these people aren't working. That just means more opportunity for me. And here's the cool thing about the industry that we're in. Everybody needs a roof over their head.
Yep.
Right? That doesn't change. It's not like we're selling something that people may or may not need. They need a roof over their head.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. Life is about your problems or your opportunities. You're either running away from what you fear or you're running to something that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that always pops in my head from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is real estate is a contact sport. So it doesn't matter what's going on in the market. Are you still making contacts? And like you said, I remember so quiet, crickets, no one in the office. If you keep showing up and you keep doing the activities, you're going to be okay.
Well, I think, Patrick, one of the things you just said was what did you just say?
It was really good. I think Jenny recorded it.
I'll watch it back later.
I don't know why I just lost my entire train of thought, but one of the things on 26 I wrote down, which we always talk about and we keep talking about, was I kind of highlighted Chris Heller's piece where, double your efforts and doubling down on intensity and efficiency and basically double down on lead generation. And so when I joined Keller Williams, it was like, hey, you should do 2 hours of lead generation every day. And then like 4 or 5 years later, it was, you should do 3 hours of lead generation. And now, or over the last couple of years, it's like, you should do 4 hours lead generation. I'm like, all right. So it's,
Now you should do 12.
Yeah.
12,
and if you're not hitting your goals, it should just be all day long, every single day.
No, it's kind of what I tell you. Like, you should be if you're not hitting your numbers, and everybody converts at different levels as far as number of dials, number of contacts. And if you're not hitting your numbers, or you have to make more contacts than someone else on the team or in your office, then you just need to be there more. It doesn't that number will improve over time. You just, like, if you're not hitting your numbers, you should be the first person to the office and the last person to leave. That's just how it is.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about, there's a couple of things I'm thinking about. One is the market, when it changes, it doesn't change slowly. It changes instantly, right? I don't know about you guys, but January 2nd this year, all of a sudden the phone started ringing like crazy.
Last year it was January 6th, and this year it was like December 29th for me. It never really took a break. It was like,
yeah, spring, January is the new spring, right?
Yeah.
And same thing is true in real estate. I remember when the market was going this way, and I was really struggling because I was out there doing the work and there wasn't a lot of activity. And my friends were saying, on the news, the ones that weren't in real estate, saying, well, by definition, we're not really in a recession. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years go by, and they got laid off, they're unemployed, complaining about the recession. And our market's actually booming because of the REOs and the short sales.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how the tides will turn really quickly, and it's being in the right position to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah. It's also paying attention to the market. Really, like a lot of people are so not transactional, but they're so in the transaction that they're not like spending time looking at the market and learning what's going on.
So let's take a step back, because in the last shift, all three of us were single agents or maybe had an assistant, but we were all 100% all in every day in the business and working on the business at the same time. If we now, where we are now, we have team members. They didn't live through this the way that we did. They don't know. They're not hardened and scarred the way that we are. So
I'm so excited for them to do that, though.
and as a leader, those that may be watching that have teams, how are we, speed of the lead, speed of the leader, speed of the pack. So how are we going to be leaders through any kind of shift that may happen?
Is that a question or a statement?
It's a question. So I think of one, we've got to be modeling what that looks like, and I think the industry has dramatically changed since last shift. There's some things that changed in the shift have never gone back to the way they were before, right? So the prospecting based marketing enhanced business is kind of here to stay, right? And then the other thing, just kind of a thought process, I think this is in the conversations, tying the agents down to what are their needs, and because you have your wants and then you have your must do's, and really getting clear on what they must do in order to achieve their survival.
Yeah.
And holding them to that. I just remember there was a guy that I worked with in Keller Williams, and he left Keller Williams because he wasn't doing his activities. And I bumped into him. He was managing a restaurant. And hey, how's it going? He goes, it's great. I drive a UPS truck in the morning, and then I come here in the evenings and I manage this restaurant. And he's like, I'm just working like crazy. All I could think of was, if you put that much effort into your real estate business, you would have a life you would only dream of.
Yeah, I was about to say he's not going to leave a company and be doing any better, because the activities, the basics are the basics, and it doesn't matter what company you're with. Like, you have to do them at a really high level, and you have to do them consistently. So it's like consistent persistence. Just
no matter where you go, you're going to be. If you go get a job, you're going to work really hard. Why not work really hard and be in control of your future?
One time I had a bold coach say, I have a job opportunity. It pays $50,000 a year. So who would apply for that job? And everyone in the classroom raised their hand. Mm-hmm. And I'm keen to what he's going to here. And I'm like, y'all are stupid. You can double that with your own business.
Cross out and double it.
Yeah, like you're being an employee. And so I guess that if that's the case, and if people are watching and you do choose to be an employee, then, call us up, because we could probably get you on our team to be in an employee role. But an agent who is going to be successful in the sales role of our world needs to understand the activities of lead generation, lead follow-up, all of the job description.
Well, it's the same thing. If I was going to pay you $100,000 and what your job was go knock on doors every single day, would you take that job? Most people would say yes.
Yes.
Right? Then why won't you do it for your own future and your family's future?
Right. So why?
And shifting that mindset to go to take the action, take the activities. I love one of the sayings, which is, if you were your own employee, would you fire yourself?
Yeah. So the mindset around the door knocking and all that is, I think most agents get into the business for flexibility and flexibility, or they're an independent contractor and they can make their own schedule or whatever it is. And so that's the difference of an employee role versus an independent contractor role.
For sure.
Like you get your real estate license and the barriers to entry are relatively low. Nobody tells you really have to do anything until the rent's due or the mortgage is due. I mean, they really don't. Like, you literally could sit on your sofa and be like, yeah, I'm a real estate agent. And then once something, you got to pay some bills. And so that's one of the things that we're working on with our team. And we went over on 135, but like talking about kind of that, and Jenny, I talked with Jordan about this a little bit yesterday on like kind of the allocation form of how much money do you have to make to survive? and what does that translate into in the form of number of dials, number of contacts, appointments set, and ultimately transactions closed. And then to be able to do that, the 2 vacations a year that cost $10,000 and to, save $30,000 a year and to do these things, what is your want? Like in a perfect world, where do you hit your goal or your stretch goal? And I think that's a really big eye opener, because most people, like most agents, aren't good as business people. And what they do is they're like, oh, I'm making money. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know how much you just spent on all those crappy Zillow leads and how much time and energy you spent. I hope the Zillow is watching this. And so how much money did you spend on those Zillow leads? How many hours of phone calls did you have to make 17 times, 27 times? And then you finally converted it a year later or 18 months later, because the average internet for us at least is like 11 months. Or you could just call your sphere of influence and your past clients and love on them and ask them for referrals. But I don't think most agents look at their business and know how much money did it cost to get this transaction, and how much money did you actually make? Were you making $3 for every dollar you spent? Were you making $1.10 and then you paid taxes and you actually were losing money? Because most people are. It's just they're seeing the cycle of money and they're not actually knowing how much they made versus netted on that transaction versus. So I think that's a big piece of, and that goes into the mindset, like this whole thing is a lot more than a lot of people think, HGTV, we just open a couple doors and make big monster commitments. They don't see the pie get chopped up like 17 times. So
Yeah,
that's my rant. Sorry.
no, for sure. So do we feel like we touched on how to be leaders through any kind of market shift for our teams? Feel like we got that.
Oh, sorry, I went down that.
We probably beat up the team members.
No, I think how to be a leader. I think part of it is like, setting the expectations and setting standards, but also doing the work, and hopefully they're seeing you come in. And I've never really said that I'm a good manager. I never got into the business to be a manager of people. I can coach people. I can also, the easiest way for me is probably to show people what I do every day. Yeah. Hey, I get up at 4:42 every day. I go work out. I go home. I hang out with the kids, do breakfast, and then I get to the office. And here's how regimented my schedule is. And I make 3 or 4 hours of phone calls every single day. There's days where I don't have any appointments, so I just call all day. I could easily just go home and take a nap at noon and call it a day and whatever. But it's like, well, I don't know what the rest of my week's going to look like, so I might as well double or triple up today just in case.
That's a good point.
So to answer, I guess the summary of that is like, I think the best way is to be in the trenches with your agents and making sure that you're not telling them what to do. They're seeing you in there with them and know that that you have their back, and that you're never asking them to do something that you're not actively doing. And there's a lot of teams that do that, and I think that's short-lived.
That would be a lot of the teams that we saw prior to the shift that don't exist anymore. And most of those rainmakers are not even in real estate anymore. As you're talking, I'm thinking about the John Maxwell quote: "Leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way." Yeah. Right? The only other thing that I would throw in there too is, I think in a market correction, you need a good, healthy relationship with fear.
Say that again.
So you need a good, healthy relationship with fear, because fear can be a powerful.
Yeah, pain is more powerful than pleasure. When what are you not going to be able to provide your family? And I always go back to I don't remember who did this, but it's like, if you don't go do your activities at the office and your kid asks for something and you can't provide it, and they ask you, "Daddy, why can't you get this for me?" You have to tell them you're a slacker at work.
You didn't do your job.
Yeah, that's going to be a really sucky conversation when they get old enough to understand that.
Oh yeah.
You aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing at work, so you can't provide what.
I'll tell you what, that works. And in my early days of coaching, I had a coach who, if I didn't lead gen, get in the contacts I needed to get in, he said, "What does Mia really love right now?" And I said, "She loves Build-A-Bear. She always wants to go to Build-A-Bear." And he goes, "Okay, well, today when you get home, I need you to tell her that on Saturday, you're taking her to Build-A-Bear and you're going to get her a Build-A-Bear. And then if you don't get in your contacts the rest of the week and report those to me, then you get to tell her that now she's not going to Build-A-Bear. And I literally started crying at the mental, going through what that would mean for my kid. And so sometimes we show up better for other people than we do for ourselves. We judge other people based on their actions, and we judge ourselves on our intent.
Kind of think about it and you're like, God, I'm going to be a dirtbag parent. If I don't do these activities at work. And, my parents did everything that they needed for us and more. But I look at it and go, I like traveling and I want to take my kids on unbelievable experiences, not, just to the beach. I want to take them places that we didn't get to go growing up. And so that's always in the back of my mind of kind of a self-motivator of,
yeah. How much does each phone call cost you? Are you not getting to your goals that way?
That was a smart coach too, to tell your daughter that she was going, and then you'd have to take it away, not.
Yeah. The pain and the pleasure, right? I think one thing I do want to just say one more time is that it's the modeling. It's us modeling it. When I show up and I lead generate and I'm in the office and I'm in activity, that's when the team shows up in their best light. That's when they see that, like Josh was saying, that we're in the trenches and we're all in. And then I do think, though, I remember this, it's probably coming up here and later in the book, is that we're really the best converters on the team.
Always. It's the last thing that you ever give away. And I think it's really hard. I don't think you fully give it away. I think you can have people in addition to other agents or ISAs, but I don't think your ISA that's just generically setting appointments for buyer and seller leads can take over your database and do the same thing. I don't care nobody's proven that to me. And I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that it would be something that they have to be attached to your hip and you have to introduce them. And over time that happens.
Yeah. Do you agree, Coach Patrick? I know you coach lots of agents and team leaders.
Yeah, I agree with that. The reason why this topic gets me going, and so I look at that, and the other thing that I think about is, what can you do to box yourself in to where essentially not taking action is impossible. So even for me, on what I would do during the shift is during listing presentations, I would say the first week I'm going to go door knock 150 doors to go market your home. I may not want to go door knock today because that's, I'd rather do 100 other things, but I promised my clients I would do it. Therefore, I was locked in to do my lead generation. So just anything that I could do to kind of box myself in where it was a non-negotiable.
I also think you can do that with your schedule. So in October, when we do focus day, I put all my, family reunion, mega camp, Gary's masterminds, my personal travel, everything's on my calendar. So I look at how many days that I have to lead generate and how many contacts I have to make in that lead generation time. So I have to really double up. And there's days that I do bold 50s or bold 100s, even by myself. And it's just one of those things that if I want to go on this vacation, I have to hit these numbers. And I have less amount of days to do it than just saying, hey, every work week is a 5-day work week, because that's not real. So I'll have my listing manager print out extra top producer entries for me to go through and put notes and leave voicemails and update those. So
there you go.
We stole that from you, Josh. The team call day is what we're calling it. So this tomorrow is our first team call day, because we realize, that 15th protocol that we hear about is that by the 15th of the month, you need to see if you're on track for your goal of the month. And we're always off goal. So why do we have to pretend that we're going to wait 15 days into the month to then adjust or do something or have some kind of painful task to do? So now we're just from Josh's recommendation, because we are always behind. So there's the minute protocol and the 5-day protocol. Just forget it. We're just every month going to have a team call day. And it doesn't necessarily, for me, it's not even so much about outbound prospecting for business. It's doing all our follow-up calls. We're a referral relationship business, and we have plenty of people to follow up with and database and sphere to touch. So what do you guys have as a hack inside of your business to make sure that's happening?
That's the biggest piece for me is so we originally started as a bold 100, and I just looked up after doing them several, dozens of times. And like I would be there till 7 o'clock at night and I was the only one hitting a bold 100, or I was getting to like 93 and going, whatever. And so we moved it down to a bold 50 and agreed as a team, like, can everybody get on the dialer or do whatever and make 50 contacts? And I also think, I don't know that I'm fully a proponent of it or not, but bold has made these contacts a little bit easier with like Facebook messages and text messages. I don't know that I fully count those because I think it's more about the shaking hands or the actual contact on the phone. I think that's the most efficient way to do it. If you're doing a text message, that's fine, but it's really got to be about real estate. It can't be
back and forth.
checking in with a past client and saying, hey, how are you doing? How's the house? You didn't ask for business. Like, I'm talking about really outbound calls of asking for business. And there's some hacks. I think you can set up some, voicemails that go out before your bold 50 or text messaging the day before and kind of like following up on those the day of your bold 50. I think there's a lot of things that you can do to like help figure out how to hit that, because it is a lot. Even bold 50, if you're having any meaningful conversations, that's a full day.
For sure.
But here's the thing, like just thinking that like asking your team and the people in your world to spend one day a month really as a team, like bring in the food, do whatever you need to do. But that shouldn't really be that much to ask. Like, hey, you don't have any showings. Ours are on there for the entire year, just like our team meetings and all of our other trainings. Like our webinars and Zoom calls, they're all on our calendar for at least a quarter at a time. But the bold 50s are all a year. I mean, their full year is already on there. So like, there's no excuse. If you're out of town, I expect you to make it up the week before or the week after.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, all of that is really for them more than it is. I mean, do I benefit from it? Sure. But I know that they're going to get busy, and I know it's exhausting and it takes a long time to show properties and things like that. So I know there's going to be days where they just don't hit their contacts. And this is one of the only ways for us to kind of make it up without doing it. So sorry to run.
And the reality is that you're going to do it either way, right, Josh? Whether you do it as a team.
It's on my calendar. Like I literally believe in whatever's on my calendar. If I erase it, I have to figure out how to replace it. And like maybe I've like, I don't think I have, but I'm really serious about all of that. Like that is, I don't mess around with the hitting of contacts, because I know what happens when you don't. I know what the end result is going to be. And, my team comes to me or we have a meeting and we talk about what they want to make and what they want to do and why they want to do it, personal, professional goals. And so I know what it requires. And so like, I'm holding them to those standards and expectations because they told me they wanted me to hold them to them so they could provide more for their family or do something that they otherwise couldn't do on their own.
When they made the decision to join your team because they believed that your team and you would help them get there. So there's some responsibility. Yeah. They hitch the wagon to you, so you have some ownership in, and grabbing them by the waist and bringing them along.
Yeah, it's not about anything other than they asked me to hold them accountable to it. If they could hold themselves accountable to it, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Sure. Patrick, are you seeing any other ways for accountability when it comes to ourselves and our teams with staying in activity? I love boxing us in and having a coach.
Yeah, well, it's not rocket science, right? It's pretty simple. It's what we've been talking about, where we go through and we talk about what are the activities that are going to lead to the result that they want. And then what happens when you do accomplish that, and what happens when you don't accomplish that, right? And are you okay with living with it if you don't accomplish that? Are you okay with going and telling your daughter you don't get to go to Build-A-Bear? And the reality is that we have to know our people's goals, dreams, and aspirations and their needs in order to have a powerful accountability conversation. If we don't know that, then there's really no point.
I think the other piece of the accountability, I hear a lot of these teams that we talk about accountability, and I think there's a lot of people that want accountability, but when you put pressure of accountability on, it's really uncomfortable, and they liked the idea of it, but they don't actually want to be held at that high of a level. But the other piece is like, I see too many of these teams that they don't really have really line in the sand, like these are the standards and it is not negotiable and you are signing off to these standards. If you don't do them, you don't even need to tell me. You just pack your shit and leave. Like that, like, and not to be mean, but just like the standards are like.
I think there's a section here.
Yeah.
I think there's a section in here about finding the motivated.
Yeah.
That works for agents too.
Yeah.
I just like, if we're not going to have the standards in place, then it's just suggestions. And if you're okay with the suggestions, then fine. You don't get to complain about your team or you not hitting the numbers. Like that's where you have to have standards in place. And it can't be just made up standards. There needs to be a rhyme or reason, and there needs to be buy-in from the team. It can't be, I mean, if it's unrealistic, nobody's going to hit it and everybody's going to be like, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I think most everybody in my world knows that there is not much I won't do to help them succeed. The only thing I won't do is I won't want your success more than you do.
That's right.
That's great. Well,
That's
let's go
then you've got the wrong people.
Yeah. Well, let's go into the actual business. So whether you're a single agent or you have a team, this would apply. I definitely know that last time I went through any kind of a market shift extreme like we saw back in the 2008, 9, 10s here in Oklahoma, I had no idea of how to be a business person and definitely did not look into my P&L and numbers. So are there ways or things you're spending money on? How are you measuring where you should be and what you got going on when it comes to numbers and money?
For me, are you asking like I run everything through CTE, for example. Is that what you're like? Is that?
Well, whatever tool you're using or how you're measuring, or like for one thing, and this comes up here in a minute, I think it's the next tactic, which is remargin your business with expense management. You mentioned a word called Zillow. I mean, that's an expense, and does it produce a return on your investment? So I think it's just being a business person, not just a salesperson, is what I'm getting.
I just think it's figuring out, I mean, everybody's got something different. I mean, KW's got CGI and different, the software or the apps or the tool that you use. But I think it's just knowing you've got to get out of the transaction enough to work on the business versus in the business. And you've got to look at, like, how much is it costing me to run this business? Like, I think there's a lot of people that are making money, but they're just, the money's just funneling through the system and they don't actually look up and know how much.
To know their real profit.
And I think that this is way too hard of a business to just be doing it to say, oh, I did 500 transactions. Like in 2019 and 18 and 17, 16, like we have a really high profit margin for what we do. And I'm really proud of it, but I've had to work my ass off on like doing that because it doesn't come naturally for me at all. I'm a numbers person, but I'm not nobody ever sat me down and said, you need to know how to do a P&L statement. Like one of my coaches was just like hammered the crap out of me on it. And so it still doesn't come natural. I just know that it's in my calendar and I have to like set aside time to look at my bank account, my credit card, the business account, and look at CTE and cross-reference all that and know my budget model and economic model. And it's a lot, but I think it's go figure out who's doing it at a high level and go shadow them and figure, like, you can learn these things.
Yeah. I look at this and I go, most people will spend more time researching their new iPhone than they will look into their financials and where their money's actually going.
Yeah.
Right. And so I like to play the either or game. Like, is this dollar invested over here going to be a good investment for my son's college education? And make it tied to something much bigger, and that's going to hold it accountable. Because there's plenty of people that have succeeded in real estate before there was Zillow, without having a internet lead generation platform, and they were out belly to belly and knocking on doors. And those are the cheapest ways to get a lot of business. So making sure that you're tracking the ROI and getting into the prospecting-based business and doing the work.
Yeah, and I think the reason our profit margin is so high is because we don't pay for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Any money we spend are on client events or me going and buying 10 cases of MREI and hold books and giving those out to clients because I feel like reading books and educating them, like I think we're leaving deals on the table every year by not educating our clients at a higher level to do that. And so and even if they don't end up doing it, I think it's good for them to know, hey, these are other investment vehicles.
Well, that you're the professional that can help them in any of these areas. Something I want to get to before we run out of time is, so we work really, really hard to get a buyer or seller that agrees to work with us. They've signed a contract. We're committed. We're teamwork. We're going to make this happen. And you get them under contract and the deal busts.
Mm-hmm.
So this comes up later as another tactic, and I remember it being so powerful for me, bulletproofing the transaction. What are ways that you guys are, because once you get someone in a contract and then it busts, it's just, it's sour, it sucks, it's, more energy and time, and your clients are upset, or whatever the situation is, or maybe it's for the better, and that's okay too. But how are you making sure that you've done all this work and they stay in contract and they get all the way through to successful closing day?
Yeah, I think part of that is like, it's gonna happen. If you do enough transactions or you're in the business long enough, it's gonna happen. But I think so many buyers, I think a lot of weaker agents, and I hate to say that, but like, I think there's a lot of agents that just want to go out and show the properties, and they're not getting, like, we don't show properties to anybody unless they're fully pre-approved. The Nashville real estate market's too crazy and too low of inventory to just go out and show people properties. And so I think it's like really digging in and getting full pre-approvals before you, or rather than a pre-qual. That's one of like 10 things I think that you can do. But it's really, I don't know. I don't know that you can fully bulletproof the transaction.
The only thing going kind of towards the mindset of it is what I see a lot of people do is, and this isn't necessarily towards bulletproofing the transaction, it's to the thought process of your transaction. Because somebody might say, I need to make this much money in order to survive this month. They get a deal in escrow, and then they baby that one escrow. Mm-hmm. And so back during the shift, what I would do is I get my demand and I'd verify everything was accurate. And I put it in the file, and I would never look at that dollar amount again. And I would go back to lead generations, and then I would gauge my business on how thick my folder was of my escrow demands.
Yeah, you're back to zero every day, man.
Yeah, because if something fell out, it's the end of the world. But if I'm not, because what happens in the mindset is we start saying, we see the dollar amount, and we say, I'm going to make this much money. Then we start spending that money in our head. Mm-hmm. And not only we lost that commission, we lost everything that we were going to spend that money. So it's almost like a double negative.
The other piece is
on the pipeline, not the commission.
If you're doing the right thing and you're getting good reviews and you're getting ultimately referrals and your pipeline's so full, it doesn't, like, part of that doesn't matter. Like, the people that it matters for is they're struggling to do more than one transaction a month, and they're, at a normal price point. But that, if you have so much in your pipeline and one falls out and they end up renting for an extra year or something like that, if you're doing the activities every day at a really high level, it actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, lead generation.
You'll have 10 more in the pipeline and one deal. And I have that conversation with one person in particular on my team all the time of, you've got to fill the pipeline so full that stuff is falling out.
Well, and what happens is if they are just babying that one deal, they only have one deal, there is the risk of becoming unethical. I mean, we never say that we're going to do that, but when we need to pay bills, that's just sad. Mm-hmm. So something that we started implementing, I've shared this before, is just, is there like a glitching sound? You guys hear something? No?
It's like kind of cutting out. I don't know what it's doing. I think it's just you.
Okay. All right. Cool. But it's bulletproofing the transaction by preparing and setting up the sellers, at least our listing, in advance for success. So a certified pre-owned home with pre-inspections and pre-appraisals, just to really ensure that we're having good conversations with the clients, that the buyers feel more confident making strong offers. So things like that. Are you guys implementing anything like that in your business?
I go through all that stuff with sellers. I mean, I tell them any of those things that we can take away from the buyers are that much cleaner of a deal, like getting it straight to the closing. I mean, it's looking at comps and making sure we're in line on appraisals. Like, some people in Nashville right now are like, hey, heard Amazon's coming. My house is for sale. And I'm like, yeah, they're not going to pay $200,000 more than what it's worth. Like, that's not how it works, because Alliance Bernstein or Amazon or Mitsubishi's coming. Like, it's craziness. But, you know, it's get as many pre-inspections as you can, even if it's something that you guys offer as part of your services. I think it's a good differentiator, and for a couple $100, working something out with your inspector to like go through. Because I always tell people like 75% of what an inspector or the other inspector is going to pull probably mostly is overlapping on the same stuff. There's probably some variance, but if they're good inspectors, they're the same stuff is for the most part coming up. So like take all that away from the buyer. So once you get an offer and it's executed, you shouldn't have anything crazy pop up at the inspection.
Well, we find that lots and lots of buyers end up just using the seller's recent inspection. So that saves on time and additional stress too.
Yeah. I think, Jenny, I think the big piece on, and we can keep, I don't know how much time we have, but I think the biggest piece that is my takeaway on these full 5 pages that we read, you know, it's awesome. I think at the end of the day, like my entire business has been built on basics, because that's what I learned. And I think agents get caught up in these shiny objects and like, I want to figure out what I can do to not lead generate. And I think you just have to own it. And I think that the basics in any business, this isn't a real estate conversation. They're always going to be relevant, and they're never outdated. You might not like to do them, and they might not be the sexiest thing you can do, but they're never going to go away. I don't care how much technology is always going to be in addition to, not in lieu of. Like technology should help us, but it shouldn't keep us from doing the same, you know, regardless of what your lead generation is. And I was talking to Nick Baldwin this morning on the phone, and he was talking about just, you know, like sending birthday cards. What's even more powerful than sending birthday cards? Sending birthday cards to the children of your clients, and like noticing those life moments on Facebook and taking that online conversation offline and following up and saying, hey, I just saw you got married. Congratulations. Like if you're paying attention, there's a gazillion reasons to call your past clients. There really are.
Gazillion. Yeah.
It's a great point too, because we didn't have Facebook during the last shift.
Yeah. Well, we did.
When I got in real estate, I had a pager, and we faxed contracts back and forth.
And you
them anymore.
And
one of the agents in
the Palm Trio.
Yeah, one of my agents in my office, who's been an agent for as long as I've been alive, showed me this MLS book. She brought it in. It was like this thick, and I was like, "What is that?" She was like, "This is how we looked up MLS numbers, and we had to go pick up the keys." And I was like, "Oh my God!"
Do you realize that we're those people now?
I know. Yeah. Now there's like, yeah, pretty much.
The old people. Yeah. Well, Patrick, do you have any? Josh had his kind of ahas of the whole section. What would you say is your overview you want to share?
I think the biggest thing is when there's a market correction, it's just being able to adapt, improvise, and overcome the Marines, right, sooner than your competition. Because when the market changes, there's going to be so much opportunity. That I watch people make more money during the shift than they made in their entire career. And I just look back at that. What's that?
Some of them are also spending it all.
They are, and they missed a ton of opportunities during that as well. They made a ton of money, missed a ton of opportunities. So I just look at the law of equilibrium, all of that. There's going to be so much opportunity. The person who adjusts and adapts faster is going to reap the benefits. And if you do it right, you will never give up that market share.
Yeah. Be quick and nimble.
And Josh and us and some other friends, we just did an MREI book club. So you can go watch those if you didn't get to see them. And that's where we can be forward thinking and prepared this time, you know, as investors ourselves, not only finding the deals for our clients, building our own wealth as well. So thank you guys for sharing everything. How can people reach out to you if they would like to connect or share a referral with you to your area?
Go for it, Josh.
Oh, okay. My email, josh@joshandersonrealestate.com. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, or you can find me on Facebook, The Book of Faces.
Yeah. And you can also connect with everyone through Kelly, KW Connect.
That too.
Patrick at patrickwoods.net is my email, and I cover all the Sacramento, Northern California area. So
I appreciate you guys. I look forward to seeing you here pretty soon in the Big D.
Yep.
I am so grateful for you, and thanks for sharing your shifty knowledge. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Okay, talk to you guys later.